we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever wanted to reach out to us, hit us up on our DMs at the Bigmark Pod, at the Bigmark Podcast, on Insta, on X. Watch out. Sounds so hardcore. But again, like I said, if you ever want to reach out to us, feel free. Wanted to hear a new episode or had an idea for something or a harangue or criticism or whatever you wanted to do, I'm all ears. Hit us up. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and know when our next videos are hitting and have all that fun stuff ready to share with your friends, because that's what we always want. If you share with one friend, we can double the podcast listenership overnight. And that's what we want. We want to spread the love. We want to spread the word. We want people to hear this. We want to build a community amongst the listeners of the Bigmark podcast. So thanks for being here, whether it's your morning, afternoon, or evening. I always appreciate it. We're going to be talking about something that's coming up, actually. I mean, if you're listening to this live before April 8th, 2024, that is, we're all gearing up for the big eclipse. There's going to be a total eclipse. It's a huge deal. We're making a huge deal of it. I think this year it's going through a lot more cities in the States and Canada, and it's going to be the next one for quite some time. So I think that's probably why we're making a big deal of it too. But the last one, if everyone remembers, it was August 21st, 2017. Of course, this is for North America. Sorry to all of our international listeners, or intercontinental listeners, I should say. But the last one that happened was August 21st, 2018. They happen periodically, but again, sometimes we can't see them, or they happen in other parts of the world. So the last one was August 21st, 2017. It was a partial eclipse in Hamilton, Ontario. That's where I was observing it anyway. And so it wasn't a complete thing. So you did see like a really small sliver of the sun, right? Like, again, you never see fucking like it's not the moon. I say, you ever consider the moon lucky to have so many faces, but the sun only gets one? But again, it's interesting to even see any part of the sun blocked out that you can really see. But of course, as we all know, it's, you can't observe an eclipse straight on. You're staring at the sun essentially, so you can cause like serious retinal damage. And depending on how the eclipse goes, it can essentially almost magnify that more concentrated beam of light that's coming from the sun. But again, regardless, you shouldn't be staring at the sun, so shouldn't be staring at an eclipse. However, when it's a total eclipse, it's a little bit different story. But when I was observing the partial eclipse, I have the actual box here. I didn't get the dark lenses. You could look at it with like blackout lenses. I'm talking like welder lenses. I'm not saying like, oh, I have a pair of dark sunglasses. No, fucking blackout. Like, it has to be serious blackout lenses, or you can use this observation box. And I know it's probably hard for y'all to see, even on YouTube's here. Maybe I'll come even closer. So it's, a box. There's a hole in it. There's actually two holes in it. There's a big hole. This is the observation port where you're actually looking through. And then this is a pinhole. Like, it's literally made with a pin. And essentially, it's a camera obscura. If you guys watched my episode on Tim's Vermeer, a camera obscura is essentially also known as a pinhole camera. That over time we have observed that through a tiny hole in imagine this room is a box. One of the walls are obviously the walls of the box. If there's a tiny little hole in the wall, the light from outside actually travels through that hole, and if it's unobstructed and that light can reach the other side of the box or the other wall, an image from outside where those light photons are actually bouncing off, whatever they might be, actually gets projected on the opposite wall, upside down, mind you, but it gets projected onto the other wall. And scientists have realized that you can observe an eclipse through one of these boxes. So essentially, I had my back to the sun, and I'm looking through looking through the observation port here, and I can see from behind the light that's traveling through this tiny pinhole is actually being projected onto the back of the box, the inside of the back here. And I could observe that through this little pinhole, and you could see basically like this little tiny image of the sun, but it was upside down, but it was this little tiny image of the eclipse, and it was really, really cool. So yeah, August 21st, 2017, I wrote on there with a little Pink Floyd sign because I'm a stoner. But super jokes. I remember watching it. It was only lasted like 2 minutes last time. Wasn't like, we weren't very close to totality, like the totality band kind of thing. So obviously, because the sun and the moon are round, depending on where you are on our round object, our sphere, our ball of Earth, you're observing that from a different plane. So the way the light is hitting you is changing. It's not hitting you directly in the same way. Like you're kind of getting a different vantage point. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of miles and kilometers. But again, it was really interesting to see. Like I said, didn't last very long, but super interesting. And it kind of got kind of dark out. Like it felt like it was like evening, like when the sun is like just starting to set. So it was cool, but this time it's going to be where I am, at least in the world, total eclipse of the fart. So that'll be really interesting to see. Obviously, if anyone doesn't know what a solar eclipse is, it's when the moon gets between Earth and the sun and partially blocks out the sun, so you can't see the sun and casts a shadow. Imagine the sun, source of light, the moon is in between it, and it's casting a shadow onto us, which is Earth. Again, because the moon is only so big and smaller than Earth and fairly close. That's why, again, depending on where you are on Earth, you don't see the moon blocking this area. So again, it's when the Earth, moon, and sun align in syzygy, which is an interesting word, but that is when the moon gets in line with us. So to all our astronomy heads out there, watch out for that syzygy. You know what I'm saying? It's all about magnitude and obscuration. So magnitude is the percent of the sun that the moon is actually covering. So it's like how much of the sun is actually being covered. Is it like half of it? Is it 75%, 25%? And then obscuration is the percent of the sun's surface area covered at maximum. So when it's absolutely the most covered in your area, obviously from your observation point, that's exactly, how the eclipse would be. Again, total eclipse versus partial eclipse. For over 500 American cities and quite a few Canadian cities, there will be total eclipse. I'm talking complete eclipse. The moon is completely covering the sun. You will only see this like thin band, like the corona, that'll be really, really cool to see, especially right now because the sun is experiencing quite a lot of action. This is going to be the most viewed eclipse ever. And again, that's kind of due to its path. It's a thick band, and it touches 500 American cities. Again, a bunch of Canadian cities too. It goes through portions of 13 states, and it goes through like 3 or 4 provinces. I think 3: Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick. Montreal is going to be the best viewing in Canada, on its way. While the eclipse is moving on its way to New Brunswick. Niagara Falls is going to be amazing too. Like, apparently Niagara Falls has like declared a state of emergency because they think it's just going to be so many people down there that all the fucking infrastructure is going to be challenged. And also they've been setting up like cell phone towers, like temporary cell phone towers to allow more people access to their phones because they think the bandwidth is going to be overdone, which is going to be crazy. Like I mentioned, Hamilton, where I'm from, I'll probably be in Guelph at the time. We'll see what happens. Maybe I can swing a home viewing, so to speak. But Hamilton's going to see 100% totality obscuration, like I said. And totality is safe to look at without eye protection. So when it is full totality, you can take a peek at it. But as soon as you start feeling get a break, you got to get those fucking shades back on or don't look directly at it. Again, you're looking at the fucking sun. Like, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with all that shit. Like, don't burn your eyes, everybody. Please, please. If you're listening to me and you will be seeing this, don't burn your eyes out. Until totality and after, again, must be viewed through blackout lenses or, again, the observation box. If you want to make one of those, super easy to do, super fun. It's just some tin foil in a box and a little cutter. Don't need much. You know, and obviously all this stuff, it kind of makes you think about like the history of the eclipses, right? Like, you know, obviously we've been able to track them and understand them and know how they kind of move and predict them, so to speak. But ancient humans must have had a completely different understanding or different experience with these eclipses. It must have been terrifying, really. The oldest recorded eclipse, human observed eclipse, it's in my research, it's kind of debated whether it's like 12,000 BCE or they actually have some evidence from 33,000 or 3,340 BCE in these ancient Irish petroglyphs. They found this evidence that they might have observed an eclipse, which is really interesting. The ancient Egyptians had a myth about the eclipse. The serpent Apep swallows the sun god Ra, and other deities actually have to cut out Ra from Apep, which is really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. The Nordic Vikings believed that the wolf skull, which is sick, or skull, I don't know, SKOLL, skull probably, which is jokes because you fucking pack a fat lip. But Vikings believe the wolf skull who pursues the sun goddess soul. So that's like skull and soul. They're always pursuing each other. That's kind of what makes the sun go round. But Skull finally catches her, and if he succeeds in swallowing her, so I'm presuming, when I read this, success is you swallowed the sun and it's never coming back. Like, I think because after a few minutes it comes back, they think, oh, it escaped or it spit it out or something like that. I'm presuming, but like, obviously the sun goes away. It goes away. So like there's some success, or maybe they're talking about partial eclipses. Anyway, if Skull succeeds in swallowing Soul, it will mark the beginning of Ragnarok, which is the Vikings like Armageddon. It's like the end of the world as we know it. So you have to think, if these ancient cultures had some type of mythos surrounding them, they've been observed, right? Like, obviously through all these years, they've been happening. It happens regularly. But it just must have been so terrifying. And I can't imagine what it would have been like. Like, just all of a sudden the sun, which many ancient religions, pagan religions, they completely worship the sun. And the sun's gone all of a sudden. What are you going to do? You're probably freaking out. And it lasts only a few minutes, but like those few minutes must have been absolute terror, especially places that were experiencing like total eclipse of the heart, complete eclipse. And it goes pretty dark. Like, I saw some footage I remember from 2017. I saw some footage back then that was like, damn, this shit is dark. Like, it goes like basically nighttime dark, which is going to be fucking trippy. There's going to be some other trippy shit that happens, and this kind of happened last time. It wasn't so freaky deaky, but I don't know, man. The whole thing has like a woo-woo kind of like super interesting vibe. Birds will stop chirping. Wind is going to cease. The leaves on the trees are going to kind of create small pinhole cameras, and you'll actually see thousands of tiny suns or tiny eclipses in the shadows of the leaves, which is fucking super trippy and super cool. But again, there's something about it, right? Like, we observe planetary motion, and, we look at all kinds of stuff like that. And, you look at astrology or even just astronomy and the study of all these things, right? Like, yes, there's a general understanding of what happens, but there's such an interesting effect like that happens here, right? Like, yeah, okay, it's just the planetary motion is just going to kind of get in the way. But again, there's something about, there's a lot of fuss going on. And it's probably because it's going to be so long until the next one. The next observable total eclipse is going to be 2144, at least in Canada, North America, Hamilton. So that's going to be quite some time. There's going to be other eclipses, obviously. I think the next one actually in North America is going to be like 2044. So that's going to be like kind of lower America kind of, I'm presuming kind of similar to the last path of the 2017 one, because they look like they kind of like cross over each other and, do like a little ellipse dance kind of thing as the solar or the astral bodies seem to do, the astronomical bodies, I should say. But again, fascinating to think about. Again, most of these cultures, right? Even like Easter just happened for Christians, and that's obviously an allegory for the spring equinox, right? The sun goes below the horizon for 3 days and doesn't come back up. It follows that path. It goes below the horizon. You know what I mean? And it's the same allegory of Jesus, the sun goes away for 3 days, comes back, right? It's just this idea of perpetual rebirth, and there's a time for atonement. There's something that always happened where we go, oh my gosh, what do we do? This is a time to kind of like figure things out, look at things a little bit different. All the astrology pages are saying, this is a time for, a new start and things like that. But it is like also like the passing between Aries and Pisces or something like that. I don't know. But always a super interesting time, and all this to line up. And again, this will not happen again for over 100 years. So all of us here listening to this, well, I don't know, maybe people listen to this in 100 years. But hey, we can only hope. The Bigmark podcast will prevail. Will be the last one standing. I promise you that. And like I said, every week I will be here for you. I love y'all. I thank each and every one of you for always taking the time to be here. If you're watching the eclipse on April 8th, 2024, if you haven't heard this yet, protect your fucking eyes. Be careful out there. Don't get crazy. Don't fucking, overpower Niagara and Lincoln County and the whole fucking joint from this whole place just because you go want to see the fucking sun. That's some pagan ass shit, boys. Like, let's figure it out. Just go and just chill the fuck out and look. But be careful. Don't crash your shit. Don't use all the cell phone data. I don't know. Be careful out there, kiddos, on all these 500 cities that might be listening right now. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy the eclipse, April 8th, 2024. Check out our Instagram. Check out our X if you want to hit us up on our DMs. I love y'all. Patreon, Instagram, YouTubes. Eclipses. All that you touch and all that you see is all your life will ever be. Peace.